Happy Saturday, this early Saturday morning. Looks like it's going to be another kind of warm day again today. But we are doing our Saturday morning live stream here at Rogers Gardens. We've been doing them on Fridays and we've been doing them on Saturdays. And we're just coming to you guys to show you what's going on in the garden, talk to you about what we're doing, answer your questions, and then trying to find a topic that a lot of people have a lot of questions on, or there's a lot of misconceptions or myths and things, and we're here to just talk about it, answer your questions, and show you what we've got going on. And today we're doing avocados, which is amazing. I love avocados so much. There's two fruit trees we do really well in Southern California: citrus and avocados. We're really lucky here. And so today I'm going to show you the different kinds we have in the nursery, talk to you about care, common problems, some common myths. There's a lot of myths about avocados and misconceptions about avocados, so we're going to go over that as well. And then answer all your questions, so please put all your questions in the comments so we can get to you and let you know what's going on. So we have a lot of avocados in stock right now. We are so lucky. We have Fortes, we have Haas. I have some here on the table. I have Mexicola. We have lambs. We have Jim Bacon's in. I'm looking at my little list here. Surprise as well. And they all have different times when you can pick the fruit and different sizes, different habits. And they're one of the biggest misconceptions that I want to go over avocados with you guys is that you need 2 avocados to produce fruit. That's actually not true. There are different ways that they flower. So if you do have 2 different types, and they call them A and B types, they do better, but it's not totally necessary, and you don't have to dedicate your whole entire yard to 2 avocados. Avocados get really big, so I think that kind of puts a lot of people off because they don't realize that they can absolutely just have one type and still get really great production, more than you're possibly gonna need. So you'll be giving them to your neighbors and making a lot of friends because everybody will take free avocados for sure. I'm really lucky to work in a nursery where a lot of people grow avocados, so a lot of times they leave them for us, which is fantastic. So we get to try all the different kinds too, and kind of figure out what our favorites are. So with the 2 different types, the way the flowering works on the 2 different kinds of avocados is there's male and there's female flowers. And some produce their female flowers first and then their male, and then there's vice versa. So they're A and B types. So if you have 2 together, they're gonna cross-pollinate and produce more fruit, of course. But that doesn't mean that your male flowering, where it flowers first male and then female, is not going to cross-pollinate itself, because it absolutely will, and you'll get a great set of avocados. And we already have a question. So what is our question?
You know, and Sarah, this is so interesting because it was a question that was brought up in discussion about this video yesterday. Charles wants to know if we have any Reed avocados.
Okay, so Jonathan, my fabulous cameraman, we were talking about it. His favorite avocado is a Reed avocado. And unfortunately don't have any Reed avocados right now. I was looking through all of my types, and I don't have any Reeds. I don't have any little cados at the moment either. They're the smaller varieties. And it's interesting because we were talking about why Jonathan likes Reed avocados so much, and all the avocados have a different percentage of oil, and that's what makes an avocado so tasty, is the oil that's in the fruit. Makes them creamy. Of course, anything that has oil in it is palatable to our taste buds. And Reed has one of the highest oil contents of all the avocados, which is kind of interesting. And I think that's why everybody likes it so much. It's also a really big avocado, which is really nice to have such a nice big one. But unfortunately, I don't have any Reeds right now. But it's not that we won't get them. We've been getting a lot of different varieties in, which is fantastic. For the longest time, we were only getting the Haas, sometimes the lambs, which is very similar, but now we have so many different varieties and different kinds too. And I already have another question.
Anastasia would like to know, can you successfully grow them indoors in zone 4?
So indoor, here, we don't have to ever really deal with that here. The thing with having them indoors is because of the complication with the flowering. you have to have a pollinator. So that's a really important thing. So the reason we can grow a single avocado and not have a neighboring avocado or one of the other flowering types, like you can have an A and then not have a B, is because we have lots of bees, the wind, and all that movement. So you would have to be the bee in your house somehow and help it pollinize itself. And you can do that with like a little paintbrush, shaking it, fanning it, all that. But you probably wouldn't have a bumper crop of avocados with one in your home. That would be a complication. They also need a lot of sun. So avocados really thrive on full sun. That's really important to them. They do need a significant amount of water. Avocados get really large, about 25 to 35 feet on their own. You can of course keep them trimmed. We'll talk about trimming in a second. The only two avocados that really do well in pots is the little cado and the holiday avocado. Both of them are dwarf and a semi-dwarf. And those will do well in containers. But if you think about the roots on an avocado, as big as a tree gets, it needs a lot of root space, so almost equal amounts. So even your dwarf style avocados need fairly large pots. That's a really big problem I see most people don't really understand, and they're not successful, and they wonder why. Is because they put them in too small of a container. And any of the other varieties should be in the ground. They're maybe going to be happy in a pot, a larger pot. You want to definitely double the size for only a couple of years. But really they do much better in the ground. They thrive much better in the ground. They need really good drainage. They cannot handle being in any amount of water. Here in Southern California, we have a lot of clay soil, so definitely amend the soil as you're planting it. Even mound it a little bit. So that's a very important thing for them too, is making sure that that water is draining away and not pulling towards the trunk. That's a really big problem for them. And when you're mounding, even if you're not mounding, avocados really appreciate having mulch on the bottom. And you can even mulch with the leaves that fall off, provided you're not having any mite problems or anything like that. Then if you do have mite problems, you need to pull away the leaves. But mulching with a shredded mulch is really great. Or even mulching with its own leaves is totally a fine thing to do as well. And another question, I knew we were going to have so many questions. I was really excited about this because this is going to be definitely an interactive one for sure.
Somebody would like to know, based on the container varieties that you talked about, what size container would you start with?
Okay.
And then you had mentioned kind of upping that size.
Right, yeah. So when you're transplanting, like for example, a 5-gallon, you want to double it. So you want something that has a capacity of about 10 gallons. So double the size, and you want to make sure that it's wider and deeper. Avocados have a lot of surface roots, so certain plants are okay with a container just being deeper, but this one definitely wants to be wider because of all the amount of surface roots that they have. Eventually, it needs to be in something no smaller than like a 20-gallon container. I don't know if you can see behind here, but I have a 15-gallon avocado back here. Let's see if Jonathan can move the camera. Here we go. He's walking, don't trip. So this is a 15-gallon container versus a 5-gallon container, right? So even this one, and this is not a variety that would be happy in a pot, so this definitely needs to go in the ground. This is a Forte. But if you had a miniature avocado, it would need to be in something a little bit larger than this to be happy. The smaller varieties get to be about 6 feet tall. You can keep them trimmed back. So just imagine you got a 6-foot tall avocado, you need to have a lot of root space for that. So that's the biggest thing. As big as you can possibly go, as possibly handle in a space is always better for an avocado. And then good drainage. Make sure that you have really good drainage, and their drainage holes are absolute must. Even in the containers, a small layer of mulch is really important for them as well. And then watering is a really big thing. One of the common questions I get all the time, and I'm going to pull this leaf off so I can show you. See the brown spit on the tip of this avocado? This is incredibly common and not something you have to worry about too terribly much. You can even have a whole tree covered with all the leaves with brown tips like this. They're very susceptible to having issues with salt buildup in the soil, and a lot of that is because they're not getting enough water to flush the salts out. So occasionally like a really deep soak will help with that. But avocados don't go deciduous. They are a semi-tropical plant. And because they don't go deciduous, you'll have new leaves, just like I have on this Mexicola here. I have all the new leaves, and then I have all the old leaves, and all the old leaves have tip burn on them. That's just not going to hurt your, like, strip a lot of leaves off of an avocado. You can take a few off here and there. Avocado trunks are always this like beautiful green color, especially when they're young, but you can sunburn a trunk as well. So when it comes to trimming, you want to make sure you're trimming when it's cooler out, and that you're only trimming enough to get it to the size that you want it and the shape that you want it, and not drastically expose this trunk, because you can absolutely sunburn an avocado trunk, even though I know it sounds counterintuitive because they want full sun. Okay, another question.
So this is a great segue. We have somebody who wants to know, full sun or can some tolerate an amount of shade?
So they can handle a little bit of shade, but the more full sun that it has, the happier it's going to be. And because they get so large, that's why it's hard to have a lot of avocados in our yard, because we tend to have very small yards here in Southern California. But they can handle a little bit of shade. Maybe some afternoon shading would be okay, but you want to have at least like 6 hours of sunlight for an avocado to be really successful. And when it comes to trimming, you're trimming to the size and shape that you want. You're making sure there's not a lot of cross branches or damaged branches. You're taking those off. And then just being really careful that you're not doing that right now when it's super hot, because it will burn. So we want to do that in the cooler months. However, it's a great time to plant avocados. A lot of people say only plant in spring. Actually, I find late summer is really one of the best times to plant avocados, because when you plant them in the springtime, you got to get them through that summer months when it's really hot, and avocados need a significant amount of water. They can really dry out very quickly. So you want to make sure that you're watering them when it's hot, about every other day, a nice big deep soak to get them through and established. And if you planting them in the spring, you got to get through that whole summer month. But if you're planting it towards the end of summer, then you don't have to worry about getting established, because soon we are going to cool down, believe it or not. It doesn't feel like it, but we will. And they're happiest getting established through that fall and winter time. Makes them really happy. Okay, another question.
Actually, I have 2 questions. We'll start with the first one. Are roots invasive? And then the second question, can anything be done to save the large in-ground trees suffering from phytophthora root fungus?
Okay, yeah, the root fungus is hard, and there's really nothing to do that we can do to save them from the root fungus. That's been a really bad problem for our crops, our farmers here that are growing them. Unfortunately, I was trying to look up and see if there was any new information that maybe I hadn't heard, but I have not seen any really great way to completely save them from that. Once they get that fungus, the roots are starting to rot. And rot, unfortunately, there's nothing to undo rot, which is really a sad thing for plants. So unfortunately, I have not seen anything. I know that they're still trying on it. Avocados obviously is a multi-million-dollar producing fruit here in California, so they are trying to find something for sure. But that's definitely been an issue. As for the roots, they're not particularly invasive. They do have a lot of surface roots, and the deep watering is important because you're trying to get some of that roots to go down. You don't want to plant it too terribly close to a house or to a sidewalk. They're not a particularly fast growing tree necessarily, so I find that keeping them trimmed and small helps keep the roots also a little bit more in control, so I don't really see a huge issue with that. Fertilizing of an avocado is really key. The citrus mix that we have works really great for avocados. I like this one because it's an organic one, and it's nice because there's not a lot of salts and stuff in it, which obviously we talked about. They really have a huge issue with salt buildup. I want to talk a little bit, I know we're at our 10-minute mark, but I want to talk about how you can harvest the fruit, because that's a question I get all the time, because it's kind of confusing. They never go soft on the tree, and so a lot of people will leave them on the tree forever until they fall off and they never ripen, and they get confused, like my avocado never ripened. So you pick your fruit when it's not ripe. Each avocado has a different fruiting time. If you know your variety of avocado, I suggest Googling it so you know when it actually fruits. There's a trick to doing it if you don't know what it is as well. So we'll go over that in a second. But each one flowers at a different time, and each one has its fruit ready to go at a different time. That's why it's another nice thing to have multiple ones, so you have fruit that you're able to pick at different times. And when you pick the fruit, you want to pick it during its months when it's good to go. So I'm going to cheat here. The Haas avocado is February through August. So that's when you want to start picking the fruit, and you're going to pick the biggest fruit. And the way you'll know it's ripe is you're going to pick it, bring it inside, let it ripen inside. And you got to be a little patient, because it can take a couple of days, or it can take even up to a week for it to ripen. The way you can tell it's ripe is the skin around the stem starts to kind of pull away and shrivel up a little bit, and then you know that it's ripe and ready to go, and you'll cut it and it'll be good to go. If you cut it and it's still too rubbery inside, you've picked it too mature, or you haven't let it mature enough in your house. But if it's been over a week and you cut it and it's still rubbery, then your fruit's not mature. If you cut into it and it's really, really yellow and kind of almost has like a cheesy flavor to it or smell to it, then it's too ripe and you waited too long to pick it. So that's a way that you can figure out what type you have too. So you can start picking your biggest fruit and use that test and find out when its peak months are. And that's when you can, there's tons of lists online that will show you what the ripe time is, and you can use that to kind of figure out your ripeness and figure out your variety that way. I've done that with a ton of friends. I want to also go over some of our supplies here and stuff and show you some of the things, because there's two common issues that we have with avocados. One is the mite, it's the Picea mite, which is an avocado mite. And you'll see you'll have a lot of little black spots on the back of your leaves. I have people bring in their leaves all the time with that. The best thing to use for that is a mix of the neem oil and the soap, these two together. We do have a product, we're just out of stock of it at the moment, that has both of those mixed together, but you can mix these together as well. This works really, really well on that Picea mite. If you have holes and little black spots on the back of your leaves, those are not going to repair themselves, but your new growth should not have that. And I would spray that every 7 to 10 days and do about 3 rounds of that. That works really well. The other issue, and it won't really affect your fruit, it just makes your tree unattractive. It does make your tree weaker and more susceptible to other problems, so it's always good to treat. The other problem that we have is thrip. And thrip is really unfortunate. A lot of times people don't realize they have thrip until it's a little bit too late and their crop gets ruined for the year. So really, check your avocado, look at your avocado, talk to your avocado, sing to your avocado, whatever makes it happy. But the more you're looking at it and watching it, the quicker you're going to catch the problems and see when it's unhappy once you get really kind of attuned to how it works. But thrip you'll usually see on the stem near the fruit, and it starts to kind of almost create like a scabbing look on the fruit. Once that scabbing really starts, the fruit's never going to ripen correctly. But once you see just a little bit of that, if you can catch it soon, the key thing to use is a Spinosad product. So this is Captain Jack's. This works really well, and you're going to spray that on there like every 7 to 10 days. About 3 rounds up to a month will help. But the sooner you catch it, the better it will be, because that can really become a problem and ruin a whole crop, which is devastating, because you got to wait a whole nother year, which is so sad and so hard to wait on avocados. Any other questions? We good? Nice.
Oh, one more question.
Okay.
Actually, it just popped up. Will the Spinosad product help with white fly?
Yes. Well, no, I shouldn't have said yes so quickly. No, you want to use what you're going to use for your mites. You want to use an oil and you want to use a soap base. The Spinosad, not for whitefly. What you would use on your Picea mites will work for the whitefly. And you want to make sure, even with the mites and with the whitefly, you want to spray the bottoms of the leaves and really saturate it really well. And make sure you're doing a couple of rounds. One round's not going to cut it, because you're not going to kill every single thing within that one round. And then you'll find that you have another outbreak all over again, and you got to start the process all over again. So if you can stay consistent on spraying and doing a couple of rounds to 3 rounds, you'll be way more successful. You won't have to buy as much product, and you won't have to work on the problem for as long, which is something nobody wants to do and worry about. So like I said, we have so many different varieties in stock. Please come in, say hi, It's been really, really fun to do this with you guys. I really like being able to answer questions. It's been really fun to have people come in and say, oh, I saw you on a live stream and you were talking about this, show me this product. I really enjoy that. So if you see us, come say hi to us. We really like to talk to you and show you what we've got going on. Always ask questions afterwards. A lot of you I know don't tune into afterwards, so please ask all your questions in the comments and we'll answer them for you. And share this with all your friends. If anybody you know is growing an avocado and has some questions about how to figure out what variety it is, let them know that we're doing this, and we really look forward to doing this with you guys. Next week we'll have another live stream on Friday and another one on Saturday, and tune in for that. We have tons of videos on our YouTube page too, so you can see all different kinds of things, fruit trees to flowers to orchids. And I'm gonna sign off pretty much. So thanks for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye.